What do you think about death penalty? Should the death penalty be introduced?
No. I don't want to live in a country where we murder our own citizens. Although, having said that, people like Levi Belfield and Axel Rudabakana, I know he was a child at the time, so he wouldn't qualify for the death penalty, but people like that really, really do push my thinking on this, and I get it, and I fully appreciate and understand if people are shouting at their screens now going, what a twat he is, of course we need the death penalty. I get it, and I respect people's positions on it. I'll just explain my thinking, if I may, for a moment. Okay. Doing a whole life term, or doing 30, 40 years, whatever it is not a cakewalk, right? It's not what certain elements of the media will have you think. There is a perpetual threat and air of violence and menace. The people you're locked up with, generally speaking, are revolting. You don't get to see much blue sky. You are not free to do what you want. And it really is not a holiday camp. In fact, if you look at people like Fred West and Harold Shipman, for example, and there are many, many others, they could not deal with a lifetime of incarceration. To them, that was torture. And they were enabled or allowed, regrettably, to take their own lives because they could not face the punishment. I'm quite happy that sad, pathetic people like Belfield and like Huntley are going to gasp their last breath in jail. Yeah. And I don't care if they live to be 100.
I think the public would want that as well. Killing them is too short, too quick an end.
It's a get-out clause.
It's a get-out clause.
Shipman and Fred West have proven that, and there's many, many others. If you look at suicides in jail, you can simply stick it into your search engine, and you'll find many killers that have taken their own lives because they can't, when they look themselves in the mirror in the morning to have that shave, they can't face the consequences of their actions, so they top themselves.
What about people like child killers, like sort of Hindleys and that sort of thing? That's borderline for me.
Yeah, but look at Hindley and Brady. Look at Brady. His sad, pathetic existence for all those decades was spent on trying to either kind of play the system or whatever because he had such a miserable life. His life was utterly, utterly miserable for decades, and I say hooray to that. And he tried to game the system, but he failed, and he died a sad, lonely, miserable death in prison where he belonged.
So do police support the death penalty? I mean, like you go back to people like Harry Roberts and all that.
Who's out?
Police, he's out now.
Who's out?
Yeah.
And should never have seen the light of day. Killing 3 police officers. I can't really speak for those who serve because I don't discuss such matters with
today's
those.
Policing, Pete. I mean, I don't know how much connection you've got or can speak about it, but the levels of violence and the drug dealing and the whole system now has just gone to a whole different level.
Yeah,
Is there any, like, as a man who's been in it for years and seen society go through it, is there anything you now look back and think, wow, if they'd have only done that at that point, or if they'd started to, the war on drugs is a joke, we know that.
Yeah.
But is there any other way, as a man who's been in it, that you could see it could be handled?
Completely. The entire legalisation and regulation, those 2 words, never to be separated as far as I'm concerned, the entire legalisation and regulation of the illegal drugs industry. It's the 4th biggest industry in the world.
Yeah.
The 4th biggest industry in the world.
Plug this 22 billion black hole that the Labour government have got. Got a bit of tax on it.
And it's complex, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to deal with it in 5 minutes, but maybe I can come back another time and we'll perhaps dedicate a pod to us discussing that. That's what we need. The legalisation and regulation of the entire industry. I'm sorry, I'm just throwing that out there because there will be so many questions, but I'll happily come back and and talk about it at length. It would, as a snapshot, reduce harm, first and foremost, massively. Drug dealers want people to take more drugs and more addictive drugs so they can sell them more gear, right? If drugs were sold through a responsible, licensed outlet, bit like your chemist, for example, okay, there wouldn't be that foisting of drugs upon you. You wouldn't be getting forced to take more and more and more and more and more. And all the really destructive drugs, like crack, for example, and what I call the under the kitchen sink drugs, you know, where people just go in and they mix up the most toxic things they can find and come up with a new drug. Those things would go off the market. Because if people could legally access good cannabis, good cocaine, good in inverted commas, right? Good clean heroin, ecstasy and the such like, there would not be the need for the dirty, more addictive, really, truly harmful shit that people pump into their bodies.
And is that something you've, like Holland took that approach in certain ways, didn't they?
Certain countries have had a halfway house and they've legalised some and not others and all of that. I'm talking about doing it
across the board.
Board.
Because people take drugs for all
Everything.
different reasons, Pete, as well. There's people take drugs to escape, they're hurting from childhood trauma, they're hurting from the pressure of life. So, you know, if they could be open about it.
Because drugs can be enjoyable.
Drugs definitely can be
Because they're fun.
Yeah. Listen, I was in the rave scene in the 90s.
Yeah.
I took ecstasy every week for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was an escape for me for the pressure I had of running a business.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect escape for me. And I was lucky that it just stayed with ecstasy and the music and the rave. And then when it was finished and I had to go back to work, I went to work.
So,
unfortunately,
Brendan, I don't want to interrupt because Peter's got to go fairly soon. I've got one final question.
Yeah.
Peter, how are you enjoying Keir Starmer and the Labour government? Can you take us out on that?
I'm fucking not.
Yeah, that sums it up quite well. So, folks.
Well, hopefully we'll see Peter back again and maybe reform in charge. That's what I think we'd like to see. Something like, let's get a bit of common sense in the country. And you could be the drug czar here because he's come out with the most common sense thing I've ever heard in my life talking about drugs.
He could take over from Sadiq, you know.
That's not how we pronounce
that's
it.
a whole episode.
My days are always more joyous when I don't hear that name. Right? Please. Enough.
So, folks, thank you very much to Peter. Remember,
thank you very much.
Get
Thank you
your
for
tour
having me.
tickets now, because I believe you're on tour, Peter.
January the 8th, opening Bromley, going all round the UK and Ireland. Please, get your tickets.